Welcome to Kingdom Voices. Tonight's episode is called From Phone Line to Fire, The Cost of the Call, Part 2. Before we begin, type in the comments where you are watching from. Behind the designer clothes, expensive jewelry, and fast money, darkness was growing. Romo thought he had everything under control, but while he chased wealth and power, fear, nightmares, and spiritual torment slowly began invading his life. His grandmother warned him about devil money, but he refused to listen. Meanwhile, an elderly woman in Florida lost everything to his scam. A struggling pastor became trapped in deception disguised as a blessing. And Detective Malik Thompson quietly continued building a case that could destroy Romo's empire forever. The streets were watching. The police were watching. And heaven was watching too. What will be the cost of the call? This gripping Jamaican crime drama continues to explore spiritual warfare, greed, deception, consequences, and the mercy of God in a world where fast money comes at a deadly price. But what happens when deception enters the church? What happens when a warning from God is ignored? And how long can someone live in darkness before darkness begins living inside them? Welcome to Part 2. As the money continued flowing steadily into Romo's world, the changes inside his household became impossible to ignore. The struggles that once defined their daily lives slowly disappeared beneath luxury and comfort. Miss Joyce no longer worried about overdue rent notices or empty kitchen cupboards. The refrigerator remained full constantly. Expensive furniture replaced old, worn-out pieces throughout the house. New appliances appeared almost monthly, and the home itself began looking nothing like the humble place where they once struggled to survive. For the first time in many years, Miss Joyce allowed herself to enjoy life freely. She traveled to beaches and resorts she once only admired from television screens. She smiled proudly in photographs posted online from restaurants, hotels, and shopping centers. Around relatives and old friends, she spoke openly about how well her son was doing and praised his generosity toward the family. To many people in the community, Romo looked like a young man who had finally escaped poverty through determination and success. His story appeared inspiring from the outside. People admired the expensive clothes, the flashy lifestyle, and the way he provided financially for his family. But Grandma Ivy saw something entirely different. One afternoon, while Miss Joyce happily unpacked shopping bags across the living room, Grandma Ivy sat quietly nearby, watching everything with growing unease. Though the house looked more beautiful than it ever had before, the older woman felt no peace inside it. The atmosphere had changed. The home felt spiritually heavier with every passing week, as though comfort had arrived carrying something dangerous along with it. Finally, unable to stay silent any longer, Grandma Ivy spoke softly but firmly. "This money is not clean." The room immediately became uncomfortable. Miss Joyce paused briefly before dismissing the statement with visible irritation. "You worry too much," she replied defensively. "At least we are finally living better." Grandma Ivy slowly shook her head. Years of prayer and spiritual discernment had taught her that not everything that appeared blessed truly came from God. "Not every blessing comes from heaven," she said quietly. Then her eyes shifted toward Romo, who sat nearby, scrolling carelessly through his phone with complete indifference toward the conversation happening around him. "Do not play with devil money, Romo," she warned him softly. "It comes sweet, but it burns sour." For a brief moment, silence settled across the room. Romo barely looked up and laughed dismissively. "God does not pay bills," he replied coldly. The words struck Grandma Ivy deeply, but she said nothing further. She understood something Romo did not yet realize. There are some battles money cannot win. Romo was too blinded by money to recognize that the warning was not coming from fear. It was coming from discernment. By then, The spiritual war surrounding Romo's life had already begun intensifying in ways he could no longer fully ignore. The confidence that once came so naturally to him now felt forced and unstable. Night after night, sleep abandoned him. When he finally managed to rest, disturbing nightmares dragged him awake before morning. Faces of victims appeared in his dreams, crying, accusing, begging for mercy. Sometimes he saw himself trapped in darkness with unseen voices whispering around him. Other nights, he woke suddenly with the terrifying feeling that someone was standing beside his bed watching him. Fear followed him into quiet places. Even silence became uncomfortable. The peace he once took for granted slowly disappeared from his life, replaced by restlessness, paranoia, and an invisible heaviness he could not escape. Yet, outwardly, Romo refused to slow down. If anything, his lifestyle became louder and more reckless. He spent money more freely than before, surrounded himself with larger crowds, and immersed himself deeper into Montego Bay's nightlife, as though noise and celebration could silence whatever was happening inside him. Inside crowded clubs across the city, Romo continued playing the role everyone expected him to play. Music thundered through packed rooms while expensive liquor flowed endlessly across VIP tables. Flashing lights reflected against gold chains, designer clothing, and stacks of cash as young men chased status and attention beneath the illusion of success. But money always attracts attention, and attention eventually attracts enemies. Rumors had already begun, spreading quietly throughout the scammer underworld, that Romo and his close friend Sean had interfered with operations connected to a dangerous rival organization known as the Brayton Crew. The accusations centered around stolen links, valuable victim contacts, and scam opportunities capable of generating enormous amounts of money. In that world, reputation meant survival, territory meant money, and money made people dangerous. Accusations rarely ended peacefully. Respect was often enforced through fear, and warnings usually arrived through violence rather than conversation. Romo understood that reality well, but like many young men intoxicated by fast money and pride, he convinced himself he could manage the danger surrounding him. One night, after leaving a party, Romo drove slowly through the dark streets of Montego Bay, while music played softly through the car speakers. The city lights blurred faintly against the windshield as exhaustion settled heavily over him. The streets were quieter now, with only scattered vehicles moving through the late-night traffic. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to relax. Then his phone rang. The moment he answered, everything changed. A frantic voice shouted through the phone that Sean had been shot. For several seconds, Romo could not breathe. Shock crashed through him so violently that the phone nearly slipped from his hand. His chest tightened while his mind struggled to process the words he had just heard. Sean had not simply been another scammer or business associate. He had been one of the few people who truly understood the dangerous life they were living together. They built operations together, celebrated together, and survived situations together that could have destroyed both of them years earlier. Now Sean was gone. Romo pulled the vehicle to the side of the road as emotion overwhelmed him unexpectedly. Tears filled his eyes while his hands trembled uncontrollably against the steering wheel. For the first time in a long while, the reality of the world surrounding him stopped feeling glamorous. It felt deadly. The music continued playing quietly through the speakers, but the atmosphere inside the car had changed completely. Romo stared blankly through the windshield, while grief, fear, and shock battled violently inside him. Sean was dead. By morning, word had already spread throughout the streets that Romo himself might be next. Fear moved quickly through the scammer community whenever violence erupted because everyone understood how fragile loyalty truly was in that world. Some people advised him to leave town for a while. Others warned him to move carefully, avoid clubs, and stop making himself visible publicly. But Romo refused to believe the danger was truly aimed at him. Deep down, denial became easier than fear. In his mind, Sean had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yes, the streets were dangerous. Yes, people became targets. But Romo convinced himself he was smarter, more careful, and too connected to fall victim the same way. He promised himself he would help Sean's family financially. He would contribute toward the funeral expenses and make sure the burial was handled properly. After all, loyalty still mattered to him in some way, but even grief could not fully interrupt the life he had chosen. Money still needed to be made. Calls still needed to be answered. Victims still needed to be manipulated. Pastor Joseph Bennett arrived at the church earlier than usual the following morning. For the first time in many months, there was a quiet excitement in his spirit that he could not hide. As sunlight streamed through the aging sanctuary windows, he walked slowly through the empty pews, imagining repairs finally being completed. In his mind, he could already hear the sound of restored worship services without leaking ceilings, interrupting prayer meetings during heavy rain. The burden he had carried for so long suddenly felt lighter. Inside the church office, Pastor Joseph carefully reviewed building estimates and overdue invoices with renewed confidence. He spoke hopefully with several church leaders about repairing the roof, replacing damaged musical equipment, and improving the sanctuary before the upcoming youth conference. His voice carried energy that had been missing for months. Again and again, he quietly thanked God for making a way. For several days, Pastor Joseph waited patiently for confirmation that the donation money had fully cleared into the church account. At first, the delays did not trouble him greatly. Romo continued calling regularly, speaking respectfully and confidently each time they talked. His voice remained calm, sincere, and deeply convincing. "There are just a few international banking complications, Pastor," Romo explained gently during one phone call. "The transfer is large, so the bank requires additional clearance verification. But don't worry, sir. My late mother always wanted this blessing to reach the church." Then Romo paused and began praying softly over the phone. Pastor Joseph closed his eyes while listening. The young man quoted scripture fluently, spoke emotionally about honoring God, and thanked Pastor Joseph for trusting the vision God placed on his heart. Each conversation left the pastor feeling reassured, even when small doubts quietly tried to surface inside him. But as days stretched into weeks, the situation slowly became more complicated. Additional clearance fees were suddenly requested. Then came legal paperwork delays, overseas tax complications, and international transfer restrictions. Each excuse sounded believable enough to delay suspicion a little longer. Romo always had another explanation prepared before questions fully formed. At first, Pastor Joseph remained patient. Then pressure quietly began building around him. The church account had already become strained after the first payment was sent. Bills continued arriving. Utility companies called repeatedly. Repair contractors asked for updates. Meanwhile, some board members began noticing unusual financial activity connected to the church accounts. Questions slowly started emerging during meetings. "Pastor, has the donation cleared yet? Why are there additional overseas payments? Are we certain this organization is legitimate?" Pastor Joseph forced calmness into his voice each time concerns surfaced. He avoided eye contact more often now. Quiet embarrassment settled heavily inside him because admitting the full situation aloud suddenly made everything sound dangerous and foolish. So instead, he hid the truth. Late at night, long after everyone else had gone home, Pastor Joseph often remained alone inside the sanctuary, staring silently at the pulpit. The same excitement that once filled him now mixed uneasily with anxiety, confusion, and fear. Deep down, something no longer felt right. But desperation has a way of silencing discernment when people are praying for miracles badly enough. The warning Pastor Joseph once brushed aside slowly became impossible to ignore. For days, an uneasy heaviness followed him everywhere he went. Even during church services, while preaching messages of faith and trust in God, something deep inside him felt unsettled. His sermons became shorter. His smile faded more quickly. Quiet moments that once brought peace now filled him with growing discomfort. At night, sleep became difficult. Every unanswered phone call from Romo tightened the pressure inside his chest. Every new excuse sounded rehearsed, and every delayed transaction pushed the church deeper into financial strain. Still, Pastor Joseph continued hiding the situation from most of the church leadership, hoping somehow the problem would correct itself before anyone discovered the truth. But conviction does not disappear, simply because it is ignored. Prayer slowly became harder for him. Every time Pastor Joseph knelt before God, his thoughts became restless. The same peace he once felt during prayer was now replaced by confusion and inner turmoil. Scriptures about wisdom, discernment, and deception echoed repeatedly in his mind. The warning he once dismissed as fear now returned stronger than before. Deep inside, he began realizing something painful. He may have confused desperation with discernment. The church had been struggling for so long that when the opportunity appeared, he wanted so badly for it to be God that he stopped questioning what should have been questioned. The leaking roof, the unpaid bills, the declining attendance. The pressure of trying to keep the ministry alive had clouded his judgment. And now the truth was beginning to surface. One evening, long after the church had emptied, Pastor Joseph remained alone inside the sanctuary. Rain quietly tapped against the windows while thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. He slowly walked toward the altar before finally collapsing to his knees. For several moments, he could not even speak. Then, tears began falling. "How did I miss this, God?" he whispered brokenly. "How did I become this blind?" His shoulders shook as months of pressure, embarrassment, exhaustion, and fear finally surfaced all at once. He replayed every warning sign in his mind, every uncomfortable feeling, every moment discernment tried to interrupt his excitement. And now shame wrapped around him heavier than the financial loss itself. Because the money was not the only thing at stake anymore. His credibility was now threatened. His leadership was questioned. His discernment as a pastor suddenly felt compromised. Reporting the scam would mean exposing the truth, not only to the church board, but to the entire congregation. And shame has a dangerous way of keeping wounded people silent. So instead of immediately reporting the scam, Pastor Joseph said nothing. The silence continued. But silence could not stop the consequences already moving toward him. Romo quickly sensed the change in Pastor Joseph's voice. The excitement that once filled their conversations had slowly been replaced by hesitation, caution, and quiet suspicion. Pastor Joseph asked more questions now. He requested updates more frequently. Sometimes long pauses filled the calls before either man spoke. Romo understood immediately what was happening. The pastor was beginning to doubt him. And doubt was dangerous, so Romo adjusted his approach carefully. His voice became softer during conversations, more emotional, more spiritual. He started calling Pastor Joseph late at night, pretending to sound overwhelmed and exhausted himself. "Pastor, believe me, this situation's stressing me too," he said quietly during one call while rubbing his forehead dramatically. "Every day, I am fighting these people at the bank trying to release the money for the church." Then, his voice cracked. "You think I want to dishonor my mother's final wish?" Pastor Joseph remained silent while listening. Then, Romo began praying softly over the phone again. Romo had become frighteningly skilled at manipulating emotions. He knew exactly when to quote scripture, exactly when to sound broken, exactly when to speak about faith, family, and God. Sometimes he even lowered worship music softly in the background during calls to make himself appear sincere and spiritually grounded. And each lie came easier than the one before. But behind the performance, something inside Romo was changing. Sean's death had affected him more deeply than he wanted to admit. At first, he tried bearing the grief beneath parties, alcohol, women, and expensive distractions. He spent money recklessly now, almost violently, as though silence itself terrified him. The clubs became louder. The spending became heavier. The nights became longer. Yet no amount of luxury could quiet what followed him home afterward. The day of Sean's funeral arrived beneath dark gray skies that seemed to hang heavily over Montego Bay. From early morning, vehicles lined the streets outside the church. Young men dressed in expensive designer clothing stood quietly beside luxury cars, while older women in black dresses wiped tears from their faces beneath umbrellas. Music drifted softly through the crowded churchyard as mourners slowly filled the sanctuary. But beneath the formal clothing, polished shoes, and respectful greetings, fear moved silently through the crowd. Because almost every young man attending understood one painful truth: Sean was not supposed to die this young, and many secretly knew they could easily be next. Inside the sanctuary, the mood felt suffocating. The church overflowed with mourners. Some cried openly while others sat in silence, staring blankly ahead. Sean's framed photograph rested beside the casket near the altar, surrounded by flowers and flickering candles. Soft gospel music played in the background, while whispers quietly moved through the pews. Romo sat several rows from the front, wearing dark designer clothing and expensive jewelry. But for once, none of it made him feel important. His eyes remained fixed on the casket, while memories replayed heavily inside his mind. The jokes, the parties, the late-night drives, the plans they once made together. Now Sean was lying motionless in front of them all before reaching 30 years old. And suddenly, the lifestyle no longer looked untouchable. Then Sean's mother broke down. The moment she approached the casket, her legs nearly gave way beneath her. Relatives rushed to support her as heartbreaking cries echoed through the sanctuary. She clung desperately to the edge of the casket while tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. "My son never even reached 30, she cried brokenly. "Money destroyed him. Street life destroyed him." The entire church fell silent. Even the young men who normally laughed through funerals lowered their heads uncomfortably. Several avoided eye contact completely. Others stared at the floor as though trying to escape the weight of her words. Because deep down, many of them knew she was speaking about more than Sean alone. She was speaking about an entire generation slowly destroying itself, chasing fast money, power, and survival. Then the preacher stepped slowly toward the pulpit. For several moments, he simply looked across the sanctuary in silence. His eyes moved carefully across the rows of young men seated throughout the church. Many wore gold chains, expensive watches, and designer labels. But behind their appearance, he saw fear, exhaustion, and spiritual emptiness. When he finally spoke, his voice carried through the sanctuary with piercing calmness. "The wages of sins, the death." The words landed heavily across the room. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others stared ahead, expressionless. A few quietly ignored the warning completely, whispering among themselves or checking their phones as though nothing was happening. But Romo could not ignore it. Not anymore. For the first time, death no longer felt distant. It no longer belonged to strangers on social media posts or names mentioned in the news. Sean's death had suddenly forced Romo to confront something terrifying. This life could end him too. As the funeral ended and mourners slowly exited the church, Romo remained seated quietly for several moments longer. The preacher's words continued echoing inside his mind. "The wages of sin is death." Outside, the sound of engines, conversations, and funeral traffic slowly returned. Life continued moving forward around him. But something inside Romo had shifted. For the first time since entering the scam life, fear no longer felt temporary. It felt personal. Detective Malik Thompson arrived at Sean's funeral quietly and without attention. Unlike many of the mourners gathered outside the church, he wore no flashy clothing, no jewelry, and no visible expression that revealed why he was truly there. He remained near the back of the crowd beneath the shade of a nearby tree, observing silently while funeral traffic moved steadily around him. Years of investigative work had taught Malik something important. Funerals often revealed more truth than interrogations. Grief exposed fear, fear exposed loyalty, and pressure exposed weakness. So instead of speaking, Malik watched. He observed the young men gathered in expensive designer clothing, trying to appear untouchable despite the tension in their faces. He noticed how several constantly scanned the streets around them, while others avoided standing still too long. Even their laughter sounded forced now. But Malik's attention remained focused mainly on Romo. Romo no longer carried himself with the same relaxed confidence Malik had previously observed through surveillance and photographs. Something had changed. Even from a distance, Malik could see it clearly. Romo's movements appeared tense now. His eyes constantly shifted around the churchyard as though expecting danger from every direction. At times, he rubbed his hands nervously or checked his phone repeatedly before slipping it back into his pocket. Several times, he glanced toward unfamiliar vehicles parked nearby. Paranoia had already begun settling into him. And to experienced investigators, fear was often the first crack in a criminal's armor. Malik quietly memorized every face, standing closest to Romo. Several names were already connected to active investigations involving lottery scamming, money laundering, and gang-related violence throughout Montego Bay and St. James. The funeral itself confirmed something Malik had suspected for months. The scam world and the violence spreading across the streets were becoming increasingly connected. Later that evening, Malik returned to the Cybercrime Division office carrying fresh observations and renewed urgency. The station remained quiet except for the hum of computers and scattered radio chatter drifting through the halls. As he reviewed ongoing case files connected to Romo, a new report arrived from overseas investigators. At first glance, it appeared routine. Then Malik noticed the details: church account transfers, international wire activity, repeated overseas clearance payments, religious fraud indicators, and one familiar connection appearing once again inside the transaction records: Romario James. Detective Malik leaned forward slowly while studying the documents carefully. The report outlined suspicious financial activity linked to a Jamaican church account connected to a possible overseas inheritance scam. Additional banking records revealed that multiple payments had been routed through accounts already connected to Romo's growing fraud network. One victim's name immediately stood out: Pastor Joseph Bennett. Detective Malik's expression hardened. The investigation was no longer limited to elderly overseas victims. Churches were now becoming targets too. Within days, the investigation began expanding rapidly. International cybercrime units increased coordination with Jamaican authorities as new victim complaints surfaced overseas. Investigators discovered similar scam patterns involving emotional manipulation, fake inheritances, and fraudulent donations targeting churches and elderly victims. Phone records connected multiple burner devices to suspicious financial transactions already under investigation. Surveillance reports also linked several known scammers to recent violent incidents connected to stolen victim information and growing territorial disputes within the scammer network. Slowly, the pieces were beginning to fit together. And standing at the center of the growing web was Romo. Meanwhile, across Montego Bay, Romo had no idea how closely the walls were beginning to close around him. Yet something deep inside him sensed it anyway. Sean's death had affected him far more deeply than he wanted to admit. As a matter of fact, Sean's death had shaken everyone. The young men who once laughed loudly on corners now spoke in whispers. Every passing vehicle caused suspicious eyes to shift nervously. Every unknown phone call felt dangerous. For the first time in a long while, many of them realized how quickly the lifestyle could turn deadly, and Romo felt it more than anyone. The funeral sermon echoed inside his mind long after the service ended. Sean's mother, collapsing beside the casket, haunted him. The sight of young men silently staring at the coffin unsettled him deeply, because beneath all the money, the parties, and the image, they all knew the truth. Any one of them could be next. At first, he tried burying the grief beneath parties, alcohol, women, and expensive distractions. But after the funeral, the nightmares became worse. Sleep continued escaping him. Fear followed him into empty rooms. Sometimes he thought he heard someone calling his name. Sometimes he heard prayers. Sometimes he heard Sean's voice. The worst part was that the whispers no longer waited until he was asleep. Even during the daytime, while sitting alone inside his room or driving through Montego Bay, Romo occasionally heard faint voices, speaking just beyond his hearing. At first, he tried ignoring them. Then he began turning around suddenly, searching empty spaces as paranoia slowly tightened around his mind. But nobody was there. At first, Romo dismissed it all as stress. Eventually, even sleep became something he feared. He often woke suddenly in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, breathing heavily while staring into the darkness as strange whispers echoed faintly through his room. The money continued increasing, but peace continued disappearing. And deep inside, Romo slowly began realizing something terrifying. The lifestyle that once made him feel powerful was now beginning to consume him from within. That evening, Grandma Ivy sat quietly inside her room with her Bible pressed tightly against her chest. The old ceiling fan turned slowly above her, while distant dogs barked somewhere outside in the neighborhood. Normally, the house carried familiar warmth and noise even during difficult times. But after Sean's funeral, something felt different. The atmosphere felt heavy and spiritually disturbed. Miss Joyce tried distracting herself by flipping through television channels and old shopping catalogs spread across the couch beside her. She avoided mentioning Sean's name completely. Deep down, she understood the dangerous life Romo had become connected to, but denial still felt easier than confronting the fear growing quietly inside her heart. If she stayed busy enough, maybe she would not have to think about funerals, police investigations, shootings, or young men dying before reaching 30. But Grandma Ivy could not silence what her spirit was sensing. For hours she remained seated quietly near the window, praying beneath her breath, while memories flooded her mind, one after another. She remembered the softness that once lived in his eyes as a child, the innocence that made him run eagerly into church on Sunday mornings, holding her hand tightly, sitting faithfully beside her in church, holding her hand during Sunday services. She remembered how quickly he learned scripture, and how proudly he once stood during youth programs reciting Bible verses before the congregation. She remembered praying over him at night while he slept peacefully as a child. In those days, she imagined a future filled with peace, purpose, and God's favor resting upon him. But now, every time she looked at her grandson, something inside her trembled. The fear gripping her spirit was for his soul. That burden weighed upon her more heavily than anything else because she could see a darkness slowly consuming him from the inside out. And no amount of money, designer clothing, or success could hide it anymore. Late that night, headlights swept briefly across the yard as Romo finally returned home. After driving aimlessly through Montego Bay for hours, trying unsuccessfully to outrun his thoughts. The engine shut off outside while the house remained mostly silent beneath the weight of the late hour. Only the soft glow beneath Grandma Ivy's doorway remained visible in the darkness, almost as though she had been waiting for him all night. When Romo quietly entered the house, exhaustion covered him completely. Beneath the dim hallway light, His face looked drained and hollow. Dark circles rested beneath swollen eyes that had not known proper sleep in days. Even the expensive chains hanging around his neck and the designer clothes on his body no longer carried the confidence they once represented. The swagger that once followed him everywhere had faded beneath fear, paranoia, and emotional exhaustion. Without speaking, Romo attempted slipping quietly past Grandma Ivy's room toward his bedroom, hoping to avoid conversation altogether. But before he could disappear down the hallway, her voice stopped him gently. "Romo," he froze instantly. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. The silence between them felt unusually heavy, as though words were no longer enough to describe what both of them sensed deep inside. Slowly, Grandma Ivy rose from her chair, the weariness in her aging body visible in every movement. Her Bible remained pressed firmly against her chest as she stepped toward the doorway. The soft light beside her illuminated the sadness resting across her face, but her eyes carried something even deeper than sorrow. They carried discernment. They carried the painful awareness of a grandmother watching someone she loved slowly lose himself to darkness. Romo could not bring himself to look directly at her. Instead, he stared toward the floor while rubbing his hands together nervously, like a man carrying burdens too heavy to explain aloud. The confidence he once wore so naturally had faded beneath exhaustion and fear. Grandma Ivy studied him quietly for a long moment without speaking. She saw the sleeplessness in his eyes, the fear hidden beneath his pride, and the torment he was desperately trying to hide from everyone around him. And in that moment, something settled painfully inside her spirit. Romo was no longer only running from consequences, enemies, or police investigations. Romo. The warm light beside her illuminated the sorrow written deeply across her face as she looked at her grandson standing before her, like someone slowly slipping beyond reach. "Baby, death is walking too close behind you." The words pierced through the silence with unsettling force. Romo's jaw tightened instantly. Defensiveness rose inside him almost automatically, stronger than reflection, stronger than vulnerability. He turned toward her with frustration already burning across his exhausted face. "Grandma, every time you talk is always negativity." But Grandma Ivy's eyes filled with tears instead of anger. She shook her head slowly, while holding her Bible tighter against her chest, as though drawing strength from it. "This is not normal anymore," she whispered painfully. "Your spirit is troubled. Your face is troubled. You cannot sleep. God is warning you." The words struck deeper than Romo wanted to admit, and frustration exploded from him suddenly before he could control it. "Everybody dead already judged me. The police are watching me. People want to kill me. And now you too." His voice echoed harshly through the quiet house. Beneath the anger, fear pulsed violently inside him, but pride refused to let weakness show openly. Grandma Ivy stared at him with heartbreaking sadness rather than fear. "I'm trying to save you," she whispered softly. Romo shook his head bitterly, pacing a few steps away before turning back toward her again. "Save me from what?" Grandma Ivy looked directly into his eyes. "From yourself." Silence swallowed the room immediately afterward. For one brief moment, the hardness in Romo's face cracked. He looked shaken, vulnerable even, like a little boy suddenly lost beneath the weight of a life he could no longer control. But the moment disappeared almost as quickly as it came. Pride rushed back over him like armor. Without another word, he stormed down the hallway toward his bedroom and slammed the door behind him so violently the walls trembled softly beneath the impact. Grandma Ivy slowly lowered herself back into the chair with visible heaviness in her body. Tears slipped quietly down her face as she bowed her head and began praying softly beneath her breath. Her voice trembled with desperation while the Bible rested open across her lap. Deep inside her spirit, She knew this battle surrounding her grandson had moved far beyond money, crime, or street violence. Something darker was pulling against his soul. Inside his bedroom, silence surrounded Romo completely. The expensive watches scattered across the dresser, the stacks of cash hidden carelessly throughout the room, the designer clothing hanging neatly nearby, the jewelry reflecting faintly beneath the dim light. None of it brought peace anymore. Romo sat slowly on the edge of his bed, staring blankly into the darkness, while Grandma Ivy's words replayed repeatedly inside his mind. "Death is walking too close behind you." For the first time in years, fear finally broke through his pride completely. His breathing became heavier. He rubbed both hands across his face desperately, trying to steady himself. But emotion overwhelmed him suddenly, without warning. Tears filled his eyes as he lowered his head into his hands. Shoulders tightening beneath exhaustion, he could no longer hide from himself. He was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of constantly watching over his shoulder. Tired of the nightmares dragging him awake before morning. Tired of hearing Sean's mother screaming beside the casket. Tired of hearing whispers in empty rooms. Tired of feeling like something invisible followed him everywhere he went. But even then, beneath all the fear, grief, and exhaustion crushing him internally, Romo still did not know how to escape the life he had built around himself. The money had changed too many things. Too many people depended on him now. Too many enemies surrounded him. Too much darkness had already entered his world. And across town, another man sat broken beneath the weight of deception and shame. Pastor Joseph Bennett. Inside the quiet sanctuary office, the pastor remained seated alone, staring silently at unpaid bills and church account statements spread across his desk. The same hands that once preached confidently about discernment and wisdom now trembled slightly beneath regret. His Bible remained open nearby, but even prayer had become difficult beneath the growing realization that he may have ignored God's warning because desperation blinded him to the truth. And somewhere between fear, pride, guilt, and spiritual exhaustion, both men sat trapped in different forms of bondage. Neither fully understood how to escape. The church office sat in complete silence, except for the steady sound of rainfall tapping against the windows outside. Dim light from the desk lamp reflected across scattered paperwork covering Pastor Joseph Bennett's desk. Financial records, bank statements, repair invoices, transfer confirmations. The documents that once represented hope for the struggling ministry now looked like evidence of devastating failure. And sitting in the middle of it all was one horrifying truth Pastor Joseph could no longer deny. The donation had been fake. Every dollar was gone. The church account had been drained through manipulated transactions, fraudulent processing fees, and carefully orchestrated transfer reversals connected to the supposed inheritance release. Pastor Joseph stared blankly at the glowing computer screen, while reality settled over him piece by piece, like crushing weight pressing against his chest. The church had trusted him completely. The board trusted him. The congregation trusted him. Families had prayed beside him, believing God was finally opening a door for the ministry. And now everything was collapsing around him. His hands trembled visibly as he reached for his phone once more and dialed Romo's number again. He listened silently while the call rang. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Again. Straight to voicemail. Pastor Joseph lowered the phone slowly before burying his face into his hands as shame consumed him completely. The loss of money alone was painful, but something far deeper now tormented him internally. Deep down, he finally understood the truth he had been resisting for weeks. His desperation had clouded his discernment. He wanted the miracle so badly that he ignored every warning sign God tried placing before him. The uneasiness during prayer, the quiet warnings in his spirit, the inconsistencies that should have raised concern. He convinced himself fear was the enemy, when in reality, discernment had been trying to protect him all along. Now, the sanctuary stretching silently beyond his office door no longer felt comforting. It felt accusing. Tears rolled slowly down his face as he stared toward the empty pews. For years, he had preached sermons about faith, wisdom, and obedience to God's voice. He had counseled others about discernment and warned them against deception. Yet now, he sat broken beneath the painful realization that even spiritual leaders could become vulnerable when desperation became stronger than wisdom. At that very same moment across Montego Bay, Romo sat alone inside his dark bedroom, staring blankly at the glowing screen of his phone. The room remained silent except for the faint hum of electronics and distant sounds drifting through the neighborhood outside. Missed calls from Pastor Joseph filled the display one after another. Romo ignored every single one. His face remained emotionally numb, but inside him, anxiety had already begun tightening steadily for days. Sean's death, the funeral, the investigation pressure, the nightmares, Grandma Ivy's warning. Everything was beginning to pile together inside his mind until even silence felt dangerous. Then suddenly, a new notification appeared across the screen. Unknown number. Romo frowned immediately. Slowly, he opened the message. 3 simple words appeared on the screen. "You are next." His breathing stopped. The atmosphere inside the room shifted instantly. Fear spread visibly across his face, while the room suddenly felt colder around him. Romo looked nervously toward the dark corners of the bedroom as paranoia gripped his chest violently. For the first time since entering the scam life, the danger no longer felt distant or theoretical. It felt personal, very personal. Outside his bedroom window, Montego Bay remained awake beneath the darkness of the night sky. Cars moved through distant streets. Music drifted faintly from clubs and corner shops. Police sirens echoed somewhere far away before disappearing into the city. But beneath the ordinary movement of the night, pressure was quietly tightening from every direction. Police investigations were expanding. Enemies were watching. Victims were speaking. And deep inside his spirit, Romo knew something terrible was approaching rapidly toward him. The question was no longer whether the life he built would eventually collapse. The only question remaining now was who would survive when it finally did. We have come to the end of part 3, but the story is far from over. The warnings are becoming louder. The pressure is tightening. And the choices each person makes from this moment forward will change everything. Will Romo finally heed the warning of Grandma Ivy before the lifestyle, money, and glamour destroy him completely? Or has the darkness already pulled him too far away from the person he once was? As fear, violence, paranoia, and spiritual torment continue surrounding his life, Romo now stands at a dangerous crossroads between repentance and destruction. And what will become of Pastor Joseph Bennett? Will he find the courage to confront the painful truth and seek help before shame destroys both his ministry and his faith? Or will silence continue pulling him deeper into regret and isolation? If this story has inspired or challenged you, do not let the message end here. Like, share, and subscribe, so these modern Jamaican parables can reach someone else who may need hope, wisdom, healing, or a reminder that God still speaks even in life's darkest moments. Before you go, leave a comment below and tell us what part of the story impacted you most. Stories like this are more than entertainment. They remind us that every choice carries consequences, every soul matters to God, and no life is ever beyond redemption. From Jamaica to the nations, let us continue telling stories that awaken faith, heal broken hearts, and shine light into dark places. Blessings from Jamaica.